How are you guys feeling? And how are you doing? You know, obviously the community is broken. You know, how are things in Palestine right now? Your families, are you in contact with them? And how are you holding up?
I'm happy to go first. So it's a heavy question. It's a heavy question for a number of reasons. Number one is because it's been a very difficult 2 weeks. Also because you feel guilty that's been so difficult for 2 weeks on talking about yourself and what you're going through. Because, you know, it's nothing compared to what's our family and our brothers and sisters and Gaza and Palestine as a whole are going through. And so, you know, a little bit of it is survivor's guilt. And another part is like, are you doing enough? Have you done enough? Why haven't you done more before, right? So it's important to understand that, like, especially this time, the level of violence and the level of brutality and inhumanity is unprecedented. There's been 5 major escalations in which Israel has pounded Gaza since 2008. And I keep thinking about children that were born in Gaza in 2008. This would be their 5th major war that they have to go through before they even hit the age of 60. They're still children. That level of trauma, that level of death, that plays through my mind. I remember hearing an anecdote from one of the spokespeople from the Israeli occupation speaking about the events of October 7th and how the Israeli community is a tight-knit community and that through 6 degrees of separation, someone knows someone that was impacted. And I thought to myself, in Gaza, the degrees of separation, number 1 is 0. And number 2, they don't know someone. They know entire families that have been just decimated. So that's very difficult. And then to have a personal connection, to listen to your uncles and aunts and cousins over the phone, to hear the airstrikes in the background of those phone calls, to wonder whether or not that's going to be the last time you speak with them. It is, it's very disturbing at times. I'm personally not someone who is very emotional publicly. I know that I was at work and just going through this and trying to process it. And in the middle of trying to go through my work, I started to tear up in front of my coworkers, speaking about work. And it's truly difficult. I've never done that before in my life, even through the other escalations, because it's been so unprecedented. My family has never had to leave their home and wonder whether or not they'll actually ever see it again, as they fled for their lives from the north of Gaza to the south. So yeah, personally, it's been very difficult.
SubhanAllah. Nothing to say, man.
Nothing to say. May Allah, obviously, give them the patience and give you the patience and everyone. I mean, it's like I don't even know what to say. I almost feel embarrassed to even say anything, right? Like I feel like this entire episode, I just want to look down, and it's because like a sense of guilt, a sense of like I'm ashamed that are we doing enough? Why weren't we doing anything prior to that? Like the points you mentioned. So thank you for sharing that, and I know it was a lot to share, but I think it's important. It's important that we're talking about these things, and we
like I relate to that moment at work. It's like, who cares if that thing doesn't work? Like I swear to God, like I'm like, oh, can we just make this better? I'm like, I don't really care if this chip doesn't work. Like I seriously don't care. We might not even be, you know, like might not even be sane, you know, by the time this project is done, or you know, people might not be here, right, while I fix this bug, or so the mental state, and I don't have family there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I just like, you know, I'm watching the videos, I'm reading, you know, the articles, and it's like, man, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to do anything. You know, I just want to work on this if I can. You know, so may Allah reward you, man, and thank you for sharing that, and you know, Allah only tests people that, you know, could weather the storm, and I ask Allah that Allah makes you and your family strong, and to go through this and save them, and save everybody there, inshallah. Muhammad?
I think similar to what Rami said, I think you pause and reflect on the experience of the Palestinians over these decades, right? And I know we're focusing on the past couple of weeks because they're like the ultimate choke of an abuser, right? Abusing someone, trying to kill them, wipe them out. It's like they're just trying to squeeze that neck harder. That's what it feels like. But those hands around the neck have been there. And every time I've spoken with family there, you could hear the frustration. You could hear the feeling like, hey, no one's hearing our story. You think of like if you go to an elementary school class and there's bullies there, right? You find a kid that's trying to build something with Legos, and then this bully comes and knocks it down, right? Don't you dare tell the teacher. That's the bully. That's the occupier. And you can hear it in their voices in terms of their frustration with that bully. And the problem is, in this case, we had the other authorities, the other powers across the globe. They're enabling the bully to do what they're doing.
And in that analogy, that's like the teacher and the principal and the administrators
100%.
are patting the bully on the back.
Yep.
So how's that kid building the Lego supposed to feel?
And getting them
It's like, dude, what the heck?
steel-toed boots to kick the Legos.
Oh,
right?
man.
And in fact, kick the other kid. And so if we don't see it, and especially if you don't have folks on the ground that you have a family connection, right? I mean, I imagine like I ask my cousins, like, how do we get someone, just a fellow neighbor to feel your pain, to empathize with that pain? How do you do that? Only way is to reflect on an analogy that they've experienced or they've witnessed. I mean, frankly, they're witnessing it in real time right now. Instagram, Facebook. People are seeing videos of this annihilation of a people. And at some point, if the hearts don't get stirred up, well, then that's beyond any words that can come out of our mouths. My aunt, I mentioned this previously. My aunt, every time I would talk to her, right, she'd have her windows, new windows for her apartment. The jets fly over, blow them out, right? Just because of how low they're flying. If you were at Fleet Week, you kind of feel that power of the jets. Mm-hmm. They come down, blow out your windows. Well, if you don't have much money and you just had to raise that money, and 75% plus unemployment among young folks, how are you going to do that? 3 to 5 hours of electricity. Well, all the food that I just bought and put in the fridge, that's gone to waste, right? And so that internal frustration.
And it's not like there's a store that they could go buy from every day. Food comes in like very scarce.
Right.
Like
because the bully controls the borders.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The occupier controls the water. I mean, you pause and think, like, how can an entity that is defending itself have control over water going in, right? Food going in. Like, you got to pause and think, like, that's not a defense mode, right? That's an occupier that's just accumulating more power to bully and in effect, in a calculated way, cleanse the area of these people and dehumanize these people. But one thing that I always get from my conversations with my family there is that resilience, right? Companies, we're in the Valley. We pay tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get our teams resiliency training. And I say, take your teams and go to Gaza, go to the West Bank. And you will see resiliency. You get kicked down, you bounce right back up, and you bounce higher. And that is what's going to get justice to prevail. It's the people there and us supporting them and us doing our part. And you don't need family to feel their pain, because it's a human pain. Yeah. Seeing a child I mentioned this over the news the other day. When a child comes in dead to the ER or dying, it is one of the most painful things we can see. We see death every day. I see people dying all the time. When a kid comes in and there's this automatic feeling like, I got to do everything 100%, 110%. And if, you realize over time that when it's time for someone to go, it's time for them to go. It doesn't matter what you do. If we don't feel that pain, that human experience, then, you check your pulse, you don't have a pulse. You don't have that humanity, that pulse of humanity circulating in your body. And so I know that may be a long-winded answer to your question, but that's what you get when you talk to my family in Gaza.
That's going to be really hard to follow.
I mean, it's not. It's
No, that is, out of respect, that is just,
Yeah.
I can't. Like, that is just really, really eloquently said and beautifully said. Everything that we're feeling, and to both of you, your words. Both of you, your words is so eloquently put. It's like Rami and Muhammad, you guys took all of my family's thoughts and feelings and put it out there right now in the most unbelievably respectful manner I've ever heard. And from everything that I have been watching, from a social media standpoint, from the Al Jazeera standpoint, I would have listened to what both of you just said 1,000 times. And I truly hope, inshallah, that people feel what you just said the way I just felt it. All I have is the perspective of my father here, my family here, his brothers and sisters here, alhamdulillah, and the pain that we feel and the mute that we feel from being a business owner. People know me as this happy-go-lucky guy, jumping in front of the social media standpoint, because that's how we got our business started. For close to 2 weeks now, I am pulling myself off like a cement out of bed to go and continue for the people who work for me. They're my only motivation at this point. As you know, I didn't even want to come and do this. But if it was for Palestine, for sure, and I think a lot of us are feeling, what can we do? What can we do? We're seeing it. We're watching social media. We're seeing the children dying in front of us. People who don't have the experience to be in an ER room are watching, at my age, in my perspective, children dying on video without censorship.
En masse.
Yeah, getting killed. And a lot of the people who work for me who are not Palestinian or even Muslim, what can we do? A lot of people are feeling like that. Well, we can pray, dua. We can give back somehow through certain organizations. So hopefully, inshallah, the money reaches them.
which we don't know. Like, that's the part that scares me too. It's like, I mean, I'm gonna give it anyways. I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah.
I will take the chance. But like, the reality is that, you know, maybe it might not get there, right? That's another, you know, reality that we live in.
The choke you spoke about, we're feeling it in the day-to-day society as Palestinians trying to survive here. We're being muted. The media is sending off messages that is absolutely despicable about our people and who we are and what we stand for. And the protests we're seeing throughout the nation, they're calling it a terrorist group, or that we're supporting some kind of terror. That's what really hit me. And because we have been protesting for the past 75 years, and to call us that right now, in the worst moment I've seen in my lifetime of fighting, out of the 5 wars you spoke about, this is the worst I've ever seen it. And I you know, my fear is not comparable at all to what people are feeling in Gaza, but my fear is for all of us, and how discriminating and strong the oppressor is. Wow. Like I can't even believe that we are choked the way we are, and people actually follow it. You know, it's unbelievable.
It's like humanity is gone.
It's gone.
It's like we're not human anymore.
Well, I think that's the intent of the occupied. That's the intent of those in power, is to get you to the point where you fear so much that you get paralyzed, that you stop doing what you're doing, that you isolate, right? Because when you isolate, then people don't get a chance to know you, don't get a chance to frequent your restaurant, or come talk to you as your neighbor, right? And that's when you have to be steadfast. That's how you have to stand your ground.
Yes.
Right? And do what you got to do, because that's the sunnah of the Prophet. He didn't go isolate. He stood his ground. The Sahaba stood their ground. People knew them, right? And that is going to carry a lot further than just tidbits that people hear on the news, right?
Yep.
If people want to hear, they want to know, they're going to know, right? And sometimes you look at this, the propaganda machine, and you feel like, oh my gosh, this rogue wave coming at me at the beach, right? And it's going to knock me down, right? You have to know how to ride that wave. How are you going to ride that wave? The wave is not going to go away.
Yeah.
It's not going away. And in fact, we see these waves all the time in different forms, Islamophobia. And that's just relevant to Muslims directly, but hey, how about our black brothers and sisters who have endured so much over centuries in this country? And that's what goes back to, as Muslims, we stand up for justice regardless. If it's Palestine, if it's here domestically, people are unhoused, we support justice for them. We have to have a stance on these things, because it can't just be when it's relevant to us. Right now it's highlighted because the Palestinian struggle has been ongoing for as long as it has, and it's representative of a lot of injustice around the world. But you got to pause and think, who's benefiting from the divide and conquer, right? When Jewish colleagues, come to me and they say, hey, I'm afraid about anti-Semitism because of this, right? We got to pause and say, I got your back. You understand what justice is. You stand for what's right? And being able to understand that nuance, just because somebody's Jewish doesn't mean they're Zionist, right? Yeah. So we have to be like, as Muslims, if a Muslim is listening to this podcast, we have to be a little more nuanced and stand for justice regardless. Right. Don't paint every population the same, because that's a method that is being used, against us right now.